An hour later, a Global Express private jet landed at Tokyo Airport. After the plane landed, it taxied all the way to its own private hangar. Masao had been waiting in the hangar for a long time. As soon as the plane entered the hangar, it stopped, and the door opened immediately. After that, Ikaro's assistant jumped out of the plane eagerly with the small wooden box in his hand. He quickly ran towards Masao at this time. At this time, Masao was really looking forward to the medicine as he sat in the wheelchair. His second son, Jiro, was pushing the wheelchair with a blank expression on his face at this time. In fact, Jiro was really very annoyed. He was already winning the competition to become the heir of the family. Moreover, he depended on his own strength and ability to beat and dominate his own elder brother. Unexpectedly, his elder brother had actually gone to Oro's Hill just to steal the magical pills. If this medicine was really so magical, then it would not only cure his father's disease, but it would also bring huge profits to Kobayashi Pharma. By then, all the little advantages that he had accumulated over the past years would have been all for nothing. Ikaro's assistant handed the magic medicine over to Masao with both hands as he blurted out, "Chairman, this is the magic medicine that the vice chairman desperately obtained for you. He specifically asked me to hand this medicine over to you as soon as I'll land in Tokyo." Masao nodded, and he could not wait any longer. "Give me one of the pills." The assistant hurriedly opened the small wooden box before he handed a pill over to Masao. At this time, one of their servants also hurriedly delivered a glass of warm water to him. Masao trembled as he took the pill in his hand before placing it under his nose to smell the fragrance of the medicine. After that, he exclaimed immediately, "It is so rich and pure with the fragrance of medicinal herbs. The fragrance of this medicine itself instantly makes people feel refreshed." After that, he opened his mouth without any hesitation at all, before swallowing the pill with the glass of warm water. Everyone was staring intensely at him at this time, because they were all wondering if this medicine was as magical as it was said to be. Wouldn't it be really shocking if this medicine could really cure severe paraplegia? At this time, Masao suddenly felt a burst of warmth in his abdomen, and this warm feeling quickly spread throughout his body. The warm feeling made him feel very comfortable and relieved, and he could not help but sigh. "It's really amazing. I have not had any sensation in my legs for a very long time, but this medicine is actually making my legs feel warm." A few minutes later, Masao could feel his whole body being filled with a very powerful and sudden surge of strength. He felt as though he had suddenly returned to 10 or even 20 years ago. He was so excited, and he could not help but try to stand up so that he could be in control of his own legs. Unexpectedly, Masao really stood up all by himself with little to no effort at all. "Oh my God!" Everyone around him was amazed. Even Jiro was stunned. He studied and majored in medicine, and he knew that as long as there was a problem with the nervous system, it would be very difficult and almost impossible for it to be treated. No matter how rich or wealthy a person was, they could never be completely cured once paralyzed. It could even be impossible for them to stand up on their own. However, this magical medicine took less than 10 minutes to make his father, who had been paralyzed for more than 3 years, stand up on his own 2 legs. This was just too amazing, right? This way, this medicine would not only be able to cure paraplegia, hemiplegia, and strokes, but they would also be able to cure and treat diseases such as Parkinson's disease. After all of these illnesses were related to the nervous system. This medicine was really an invincible magic medicine. At this time, Masao tried to move forward, and he initially thought that he would be stumbling in his steps. Unexpectedly, he could walk in a very relaxed and free manner. Masao was very excited. He started walking faster and faster, and he even turned around and trotted a few steps. He was in an extremely good condition. He did not only cure his paralysis, but he felt 20 years younger at this time. The Kobayashi family doctor immediately stepped forward to check on his condition, and he marveled in shock. "Chairman, your damaged nervous system has been fully restored. This is really a medical miracle." "Yes, a miracle! This is a miracle that even Amaterasu might not be able to achieve." Masao was so excited that he almost went insane. Just as he was ecstatic and excited, Charlie's phone call came in immediately. "Mr. Kobayashi, how does the effect of the medicine feel?" At this time, Masao was completely convinced of the magic medicine's ability at this point. Therefore, he blurted out excitedly, "Mr. Wade, I accept your terms and conditions. I will purchase the patent for these magical pills for $10 billion. Charlie replied, "I will give you my bank account number now. You had better transfer the money over to me within 20 minutes. Otherwise, I will expose all of your crimes and deceit to the world." Masao hurriedly replied, "Mr. Wade, you can rest assured that I will arrange for my financial staff to transfer the money over to you now." In fact, all of the funds in the entire Kobayashi Pharma's financial books added up to just a little more than $10 billion, and more than 70% of this amount were loans from the bank. However, for Masao, this sum was definitely worth it. With this magical pill, Kobayashi Pharma would surely end up to become the world's top pharmaceutical company in future. A few minutes later, Charlie received a text message reminder. "Japan's Kobayashi Pharma has transferred $10 billion into your bank account." When Charlie saw that he had already received the money, he smiled before he said to Masao, "Mr. Kobayashi, I wish you and Ichiro the best of luck in this world." As soon as he was done speaking, Charlie hung up the phone immediately. At this time, Ichiro asked excitedly, "Mr. Wade, since you've already received the money from my family, can you let me go now?" Charlie smiled mysteriously before he said, "You are feeling so anxious to leave this place?" Ichiro replied excitedly, "I want to return to Tokyo as soon as possible so I can prepare to take over Kobayashi Pharma." Charlie laughed and said, "Mr. Kobayashi, don't worry too much about that. In about half an hour's time, you'll definitely be begging me to take you in." "What do you mean by that?" Ichiro asked in surprise. "Are you going back on your word?" Charlie sneered before he said arrogantly, "I, Charlie, have never gone back on my word before. If you really want to leave now, you may choose to do so. However, if you leave and run back asking me to protect you later, then I'll have to think twice if I want to help you." Ichiro could only frown because he did not understand what Charlie was trying to say. However, all that he could think of right now was to get back to Japan as soon as possible. Therefore, he hurriedly said, "Mr. Wade, thank you for your kindness. Thank you, but could you send me and my men to the airport as soon as possible? I want to buy the earliest flight back to Japan." Charlie shook his head immediately. "You can leave now, but the 5 of them can't." Ichiro hurriedly asked, "What do you mean?" Charlie replied, "These 5 people were not included in the deal that we have just concluded. Moreover, these 5 men actually had the audacity to commit armed robbery in Oris Hill. This is a very heinous crime, and they should pay the consequences for their actions." Ichiro blurted out, "Mr. Wade, there's no need for you to kill them, is there?" Charlie replied indifferently, "If I don't kill them today, then there might be Dahlin Pharmaceuticals, Pana Pharmaceuticals, Sony Pharmaceuticals, and many other companies who could come and act recklessly in Oris Hill in the future. If you continue bargaining with me, I might have no choice but to cut off your tongue." Ichiro had a horrified expression on his face, and he stopped talking immediately. He glanced at his 5 subordinates who had a bewildered expression on their faces because they could not understand the local language. After that, Ichiro gritted his teeth before he said, "Okay then, please send me to the airport first." At this time, Charlie said to Orville, "Orville, I want you to send him to the airport personally. If he cries and begs you to bring him back here later, I want you to bring him back to me. However, before you do that, I want you to find a place to stop and beat him up nicely before you bring him back to me." "Okay," Orville nodded respectfully before he said, "Mr. Kobayashi, please follow me." Ichiro looked at Charlie with a serious expression on his face as he said, "Mr. Wade, you're really a very confident man. However, I'm certain that I'd never want to come back here. Goodbye." Charlie smiled, but he did not say anything. He estimated that the old man, Masao, would be dead in another 20 minutes to half an hour. When that time comes, Ichiro's younger brother would definitely think that he had deliberately harmed the old man and caused his father's death. Even if he did not doubt Ichiro at all, he would definitely hold the old man's death over Ichiro just so as to eradicate his own troubles of taking over the pharmaceutical company. When that time came, Ichiro would definitely be hunted down by Kobayashi Pharma, and he would not dare to return to Japan. Albert started driving and excited Ichiro as they rushed to the airport. Ichiro was very excited. Even though his family had to pay Charlie $10 billion for the medicine prescription, his father's paralysis had been completely cured. Moreover, Kobayashi Pharma also obtained the prescription for the magic medicine. With this prescription, Kobayashi Pharma would be able to usher in rapid development. When he became the chairman of Kobayashi Pharma, he would finally be able to reach the pinnacle of his life. Thus, he could not wait to grow a pair of wings and return to Tokyo immediately to accept his father's admiration and worship. At this time in Tokyo, Japan, Masao, who had fully restored his health, was currently experiencing the beauty of youth with excitement. His physical condition was so good that he could not wait to find two young girls to quickly experience the rejuvenation that he had already lost for a long time. On the way out of the airport, Masao wanted to drive on his own. Two of his favorite things in his life were none other than women and cars. For him, both of these things gave him a strong sense of control. It would be difficult for him to find women at this time. Moreover, it would not be too good for his own reputation if he looked for women as soon as he recovered. What's more, his second son was right here with him at this time. However, it would always be possible for him to drive, right? Of course, Jiro did not dare to disobey his father's wishes. After all, he was already in a very weak position now. Once his elder brother returned to Tokyo, then he would definitely be regarded as the hero of the Kobayashi family. Therefore, Jiro knew that he had to coax his father well at this time. Therefore, he hurriedly said, "Dad, why don't you drive my Bentley sports car home instead? Didn't you used to love speed the most when you were younger? This car is very dynamic and sporty, and it happens to be late at night now. There won't be many cars on the road so late at night, so you'll be able to speed as fast as you want to." "Okay," Masao laughed, before getting into the driver's seat in Jiro's Bentley sports car. Jiro hurriedly got into the co-pilot's seat before he said respectfully, "Dad, I really did not expect to be able to sit in a car driven by you again in this lifetime. I've always enjoyed riding in your car because you drive so well, and you give people a strong sense of security." Masao nodded as he exclaimed, "Jiro, this is really a person's good fortune. Amaterasu might not have thought that I would still have such an opportunity to enjoy these things in life. This is simply the second spring of my life." Jiro sat up next to his father, filled with excitement on his face as he said, "Dad, why don't you start the car now? I can't wait to see you driving again." Masao smiled before he stretched out his hand to press the button to start the engine. However, after stretching out his hand, Masao suddenly felt his whole body turning stiff in an instant, and he felt as though he was losing control of his body. Jiro watched his father's hand hanging in the air for a short while without pressing the activation button. At this time, he quickly asked, "Dad, are you feeling too excited?" Masao could not speak, and he could only whimper twice as hard as he possibly could. At this time, he felt that it was very difficult to breathe and he was about to suffocate to death. When Jiro turned around to look at his father, he was utterly shocked. His father's face had already turned black and purple, and all the blood vessels on his neck and forehead were popping out. It was a very terrifying sight. Jiro panicked and he blurted out, "Dad, what's wrong with you?" Masao felt as though there was a pair of strong hands strangling his neck at this time. He looked at Jiro with a pained expression on his face before he said with all of his strength, This medicine is poisonous." After that, Masao suddenly lost all the strength in his body, then tilted his head and died while foaming at his mouth. The terminal lucidity pill finally exerted its ultimate medicinal effect and killed Masao. Masao did not even know that he was dying and that the medicine that he had taken was actually poison. Jiro hurriedly pushed the car door open at this time as he yelled at the other family members who were about to board the other vehicles and said, "Dad has been poisoned! The magic medicine that my brother brought back is poisonous!" When everyone heard his words, they felt as though they had just been struck by lightning. A large group of people swarmed towards his Bentley, and the family doctor also hurried over to check at this time. It did not matter how you look at it because the old man was obviously dead. At this time, Masao's expression was extremely distorted and terrifying. His complexion was black and his eyes were bloodshot with blood oozing out of them. His mouth was wide open and he died an extremely miserable death. The family doctor stepped forward to check on Masao, and he said in a trembling tone, "The chairman, he's really dead. He really died of poisoning. Was the magic medicine really poison?" The members of the Kobayashi family felt as though they were all frozen in place at this time. If the magic medicine was poison, then they would have suffered a heavy loss. Right now, the chairman of Kobayashi Pharma was dead, and almost all the cash belonging to Kobayashi Pharma had already been remitted to the other party. What was even worse was the fact that more than 70% of this money was from bank loans. This way, Kobayashi Pharma would take more than 8 to 10 years just to repay their loan to the bank in the future. How could there possibly be any chance for a rapid development now? It was conceived that the future of the Kobayashi Pharma was already bleak at this time. Jiro had a very gloomy expression on his face. However, even though he was very sad over his father's death, he was also feeling a little excitement in his heart. This was because he knew that his brother, Ikaro, would never be able to threaten his position again in future. Not only would he be unable to threaten him, but Jiro could also issue an order to kill him. Killing his own father was a capital crime. As long as Ikaro dared to set foot in Japan, he would be cut up into pieces. No! Even if he chose not to return to Japan, Jiro would send someone out to hunt him down and kill him. As he thought about this, Jiro had a cold expression on his face as he said, "My brother Ikaro must be the one who planned to harm and kill my father. We can never forgive him for doing such a rebellious thing." The folk customs of Japan were very similar to those of China. In the traditions of these two countries, killing a person's own father was the biggest crime that anyone could ever commit. Therefore, Jiro gritted his teeth and said, "No, I, Jiro Kobayashi, officially announce that I will give a cash reward of 5 billion yen to anyone who can kill Ichiro Kobayashi for his rebellious crime of murdering his own father. I will also temporarily take over the position of chairman of Kobayashi Pharma for the time being. Please spread the word to all the gang members in Japan and anywhere else that Ikaro could possibly be hiding." 5 billion yen was approximately $50 million, and it was a huge amount. Even though Kobayashi Pharma had just lost $10 billion and suffered a huge financial loss, it was still a world-renowned pharmaceutical company after all. Therefore, even if the journey ahead would be very difficult, Jiro felt that it was worth spending 5 billion yen in exchange for his brother's life. This 5 billion yen would definitely be enough incentive for all the Japanese gangs to hunt Ikaro down. As long as Ikaro was dead, Jiro would naturally end up as the official chairman of the company without any competition at all. At this time, Ikaro's assistant was frightened to death, and he quickly ran away from the airport in a hurry while no one was paying any attention to him. At the same time, he quickly made a phone call to Ichiro. As soon as the phone call was connected, he cried out immediately, "Mr. Kobayashi, don't come back to Japan! You cannot come back to Japan! Your father is dead, and your younger brother thinks that you killed him with the magic medicine that you brought back. Now he's offering everyone a reward of 5 billion yen for your life." Ikaro was utterly shocked when he heard his assistant's words. His father was dead? He died after taking the magic medicine that he sent to him? How could this be possible? Could it be that the magic medicine was poison itself? As he thought about it, Ikaro was really very angry and frightened. He wished that he could confront Charlie in person. Charlie actually dared to cheat his family out of $10 billion and poison his old man to death? Wasn't he a little too cruel? However, Ikaro knew that he would never be able to defeat Charlie. So what was the use of confronting him? His father was already dead, and it would be completely impossible for him to resurrect him and bring him back to life. Ikaro also knew that it would be impossible for Charlie to return the $10 billion to him. At this time, Ikaro's assistant hurriedly said, "Mr. Ichiro, you should find a place to hide in Oris Hill. Do not show your face for the time being. I am guessing that there will be many Japanese gang members and killers who would be going to Oris Hill to hunt you down and kill you tomorrow." Ikaro could not help but panic and feel even more anxious after listening to his assistant's words. This was terrible. His brother was offering a cash reward of 5 billion yen for his own head. At this time, Ikaro suddenly remembered what Charlie said before he left. At this time, Ikaro quickly begged Orvel to bring him back to Charlie. It seemed as though Charlie had already expected something like this to happen. That bastard! He was the one who specifically set up this trap and poisoned his father to death. At this time, Ikaro could not wait to smash Charlie into pieces. However, as he thought about it, Ikaro knew that he would never be able to return to Japan for the time being. Moreover, he would have nowhere to hide in Oris Hill when the Japanese gang members came looking for him tomorrow. It seemed as though Charlie was his only chance of survival. After all, Charlie had a strong background in the country, and no matter which Japanese gang members came at him, they could not possibly be Charlie's opponent at all. Therefore, Ikaro hurriedly begged, "Mr. Orvel, please, could you please send me back to Mr. Wade? Please!" Orvel nodded faintly before he pulled the car over and walked over to the front passenger seat. After that, he opened the car door before he dragged Ikaro out and started punching and beating him without saying a single word at all. After getting beaten up, Ikaro yelled, "Mr. Orvel, what are you doing?" Orvel simply replied, "This is what Mr. Wade had instructed me to do. He said that if you asked me to bring you back to him, I should beat you up first before bringing you back to see him." After that, Orvel continued kicking and beating up Ikaro, who was lying on the ground at this time. Even though Orvel was much older than Ikaro, he was a mobster boss, and his physical fitness was different from an ordinary person's. After getting hit a few times, Ikaro was already feeling dizzy, but he did not dare to say anything at all out of fear that Orvel would just abandon him and leave him to die. After beating him up, Orvel dragged Ikaro up to his feet before throwing him into the car and heading back to the dog farm. When they returned to the dog farm, Ikaro realized that his remaining 5 men had already been fed to the dogs. As soon as Ikaro was brought in front of Charlie, Ikaro cried as he questioned Charlie. "Mr. Wade, why did you use fake medicine to lie to us? My father is now dead and my brother is out to take my life to avenge my father's death. How could you be so vicious?" Charlie curled his lips before he said contemptuously, "You Japanese fool. Is there something wrong with your brains? When did I ever give you any fake medicine or lie to you?" At this time, Ikaro said angrily, "My father suddenly died after taking your medicine. Do you really dare to say that it's not because of the medicine?" Charlie shrugged before he said, "Weren't you the one who robbed and took the medicine on your own? Do you even remember the whole process of this matter? You were the one who robbed and stole the medicine for yourself. Listen carefully. You were the one who stole the medicine in the first place. Do you understand me? I did not actually give you the medicine." After that, Charlie said once again, "You were the one who stole the poison all by yourself, and you were the one who sent someone to deliver the poison to your father. After that, your father died after taking the poison that you delivered to him. This is all your own doing. So what has it got to do with me? Was I the one who asked you to steal the poison from Dr. Simmons?" Ikaro was left completely speechless at this time. Charlie was right. From the very beginning, he was the one who sent his men to rob and steal the medicine from Douglas. However, he really did not expect that the magical pills that he had stolen were not magic medicine, but a form of poison instead. Even if Douglas and Charlie did indeed join forces to put him down, there was no way for him to sue them or get back at them at all. After all, he was indeed a robber and thief, with everything that happened being a result of his own responsibility and doing. Therefore, Ikaro was certain that no one in his family, especially his own younger brother, would ever be able to forgive him. They would definitely charge him with the crime of killing his own father. As he thought about this, Ikaro knelt down before Charlie as he cried and begged, saying, "Mr. Wade, this incident is indeed my own doing. I have an evil heart, and all of this happened because of my bad intentions. I was the one who sent my men to rob Dr. Simmons of his magic medicine. However, please save my life on the account that I've indirectly helped you earn $10 billion. Otherwise, I'd really be dead." Charlie nodded before he said, "I can temporarily take you in and keep you safe at the dog farm for the time being. As long as you stay hidden in this dog farm, your brother and the Japanese gang members will never be able to find you." Ikaro was utterly relieved, and he quickly kowtowed in front of Charlie as he said, "Thank you, Mr. Wade. Thank you, Mr. Wade." Charlie said, I accept your gratitude, but you shouldn't be sitting around and waiting for your own death. You have to help out and earn your keep here." After that, Charlie continued speaking. "Why don't we do this then? You'll help out at the dog farm by raising the dogs, walking the dogs, and disposing of the dogs' excrement." Even though Ikaro was very unhappy with this arrangement, he did not dare to say anything at this moment. Therefore, he simply nodded repeatedly before he said, "No problem, Mr. Wade. I'll definitely get all that done." Charlie nodded in satisfaction before he said to Orville, "Orville, go ahead and make all the necessary arrangements for me. Let him stay and help you out at the dog farm for the time being, as well as keep an eye on him on my behalf." Orville replied respectfully, "Mr. Wade, don't worry. I will get everything sorted out immediately." Charlie nodded before he said, "Ikaro, you can go with Orville now." Ikaro quickly stood up before he followed Orville out into the darkness with a grateful expression on his face. After they left, Isaac stepped forward before he asked carefully, "Mr. Wade, are you really going to keep this little Japanese here at the dog farm?" Charlie smiled before he replied, "I will just keep him here for the time being as I wait for his brother to raise the price for his head." For his brother, as long as Ikiro is still alive, his position as the chairman of Kobayashi Pharma will never be stable. Therefore, the more he is unable to find Ikiro, the more anxious and desperate he would be to find out. I will sell his brother to him when he raises the price for his brother's head to $1 or $2 billion. Isaac was surprised, and he said, "If that's the case, then Ikaro will certainly be dead." "He deserves to die," Charlie sneered. "Kobayashi Pharma has been plagiarizing ancient Chinese medicine repeatedly, and this time Ikaro even came to Orus Hill to steal the medicine from Dr. Simmons. It has already been ages since they invaded our country, and they actually dare to steal from us now? I have to ensure that they pay the consequences for their own actions. Otherwise, we'll definitely be made fun of for not standing up for ourselves." Isaac replied, "Mr. Wade, don't you think this is a form of kidnapping? Moreover, you've already misrepresented $10 billion out of them. They've also lost their father's life because of this. Hasn't the Kobayashi family paid enough for their crimes?" Charlie smiled slightly before he said, "Of course this isn't enough. I have to make Ikaro pay for what he has done. Otherwise, he'll think that he can just come to Orus Hill and cheat, deceive, and steal whenever he wants to. He must be dreaming if he thinks that he'll be able to keep his life after everything he has done." Ikaro did not know what Charlie was planning when he took him in. He did not even know that Charlie was planning to sell him to his brother. Charlie did not have any sympathy for Ikaro at all. On the contrary, Charlie hated Ikaro from the depths of his heart. Fortunately, he had been on guard. Otherwise, things would be terrible if Douglas' magical pills had been stolen and taken away by Ikaro. Even though Charlie was not sure whether the Japanese would be able to analyze his own prescription, he thought that it would definitely breed chaos if they succeeded in figuring out his prescription. Therefore, in Charlie's opinion, the Japanese should be blamed for their own actions. Whether it was the 6 men dressed in black, Masao in Tokyo, or Ikaro who was about to die, all of them could only blame themselves for their deaths. Isaac drove Charlie home before dawn. This time, Isaac had a brand new understanding of Charlie's strength. He had originally thought that Charlie was just a down-to-earth young lord who had been living outside the Wade family. Now that he had been found, his greatest support was none other than the Wade family. However, Isaac would have never expected the down-to-earth young lord to actually have such incredible strength and power. Not only did many wealthy and powerful people from the upper-class society in Orus Hill look up to him and treat him with respect, but Charlie was even able to use his own tactics to destroy Kobayashi Pharma just to teach them a lesson. The Kobayashi family had even given Charlie $10 billion, while Charlie also took Masao's life as payment for his crimes. Moreover, it would not be long before Ikaro lost his life too. This made Isaac feel a new form of admiration for Charlie, and he also felt intense fear in the depths of his heart. At this time, Charlie was very quiet as he sat in the back of the car. As he was about to arrive at home, Charlie suddenly said, "Isaac, remember not to report anything about today's affairs to the Wade family." Isaac hurriedly nodded before he said respectfully, "Mr. Wade, you can rest assured that I will definitely keep my mouth shut." Isaac was just a spokesperson for the Wade family in the Aarhus province, but there were dozens or probably hundreds of other spokespersons just like him all over the country and the world who were working for the Wade family. Therefore, it was actually very difficult for Isaac to climb up the ladder. However, since Charlie was now in Aarhus Hill, this was his best opportunity to prove himself and climb up the ladder. If Charlie appreciated him, then when Charlie finally decided to return to Eastcliff and reunite with the Wade family, Isaac would definitely be able to ride on his success when Charlie inherited the Wade family fortune. Therefore, Isaac had already made a decision to serve and treat Charlie like his one and only master. Charlie was very satisfied with his attitude, and he asked, "By the way, have you heard of Kenneth from the Wilson family in Eastcliff and Keon from the Webb family in the South region? What's the current situation with them?" Isaac was a very powerful figure in Aarhus Hill. Before Charlie appeared, Orville was already prepared to become his dog and serve him. Moreover, Isaac had a very powerful connection and intelligence network in Aarhus Hill. Therefore, Charlie was certain that Isaac would certainly know about these things. Isaac casually replied, "Kenneth has gone to the Silver Wing Hospital tonight, and it seems as though his penis is ulcerating. The doctor said that more than 80% of it can no longer be saved, and the doctor suggested that he amputate it. I heard that Kenneth brought a bunch of men over to settle the score with the Weaver family." Charlie smiled before he said, "I guess Kenneth had really taken some random medicine, didn't he?" "Yes," Isaac replied. "It is said that the Weaver family developed a new drug and he was the first person to try it, but something went wrong." Charlie nodded. Kenneth's situation was very clear to him. He had directly destroyed his nerves with infuriating energy. In other words, he would never be able to regain and restore his manhood in this lifetime. Douglas did not give him the magical pills, but even if Douglas had given him the pills, it would be completely useless. If Kenneth insisted on taking any medicine indiscriminately to try and restore his own manhood, it would only allow the medicine to continue accumulating in the nerves, which would ultimately lead to tissue necrosis. It seemed as though the Weaver family was really in deep trouble this time. Kenneth was not only a difficult person, but he was also an evil person. He would never give up until he had completely destroyed the Weaver family. At this time, Isaac said, "The second young lord of the Webb family is now locked up at Castle Peak Psychiatric Hospital. It is said that he had come down with a very strange disease. He has to eat shit every hour, and if he does not, he'd feel as if he's dying." His father and brother had already flown into Aarhus Hill overnight, and they brought many mental and medical experts with them. But it seems to be completely useless. Now they can barely sustain his life by feeding him shit every hour. As he spoke about this, Isaac sighed as he said, "I can actually be considered a very well-informed and well-read person, but this is really the first time that I've ever heard of such a disease. If not for the videos that I've seen on social media, I'd never believe this to be true. This is really a very big and strange world." Charlie nodded before he asked out of curiosity, "What are his father and brother doing?" Isaac quickly replied, "The current head of the Webb family is Keon's grandfather, Lord Webb. However, even though Lord Webb is still the current head of the Webb family, as the eldest son, Keon's father, Donald Webb, had already begun taking over the family business on a large scale. This is not that surprising, considering the fact that he would possibly be the next head of the Webb family." After that, Isaac continued speaking. "As for Keon's brother, Sean Webb, he has just graduated from Cambridge University the year before this, and he has just begun to take over part of the family business under Donald's guidance. Donald regards Sean as his heir, and he's nurturing Sean to take over his position in the far future." Charlie nodded as he listened to Isaac's words. He knew that the Webb family had a relatively strong background, and he knew that they could be considered as the most powerful family in the southern region. However, he was not afraid of the Webb family at all. He taught the second young lord of the Webb family a lesson because their son was a brutal and heartless scumbag. If the Webb family was not convinced and intended to pursue an investigation into the matter, then Charlie really did not mind having some fun with them. At this time, Isaac's car stopped in front of Charlie's house. Charlie pushed the car door open before he said slightly, "You have been running around all night. Thank you for your hard work. You should go back and have some rest now." Isaac nodded in a hurry before he said, "Thank you for your concern, Mr. Wade." After getting out of the car, the sky was already getting brighter. When Charlie entered his house, he noticed that his wife, Claire, and his father-in-law were still fast asleep. He returned to his bedroom, and he was relieved when he saw Claire sleeping soundly in bed. Because of the Nine Heavens profound book, Charlie's mental state was always very good and at its most optimum. Therefore, he would not feel tired at all, even if he did not get to sleep all night. At this time, Charlie took out the 300-year-old purple ginseng that he bought for $100 million from the auction last night. After that, he carefully observed it for a few moments. The superb purple ginseng had great medicinal strength, and it was more than enough for Charlie to refine an even better rejuvenating pill. The medicinal effect of this rejuvenating pill was very magical, and it could even bring the dead back to life. If a dying person took this rejuvenating pill, he could be brought back to life and live for several years more. Moreover, if a person took this pill in their twilight years, they could possibly prolong their lives for another 10 years or more. Even if a healthy person took this pill, they could instantly make their body stronger, prevent diseases, and also make their own body resistant to all sorts of poison. To an ordinary person, this rejuvenating pill could be regarded as the most magical among all magic medicine. Charlie's body was already much stronger compared to any ordinary person's, but if he made a rejuvenating pill and took it regularly, he could regulate his own body, and he would be able to push his potential even further. Therefore, Charlie decided to take some time today to prepare all the remaining herbs and materials that he needed to refine the rejuvenating pills. Claire woke up at around 7 in the morning. As soon as Charlie heard some movements, he hurriedly pretended to be asleep as he laid motionlessly on the floor. After getting up, Claire stretched as she got out of bed quietly. When she looked at Charlie, who was sleeping on the floor at this time, Claire could not help but feel a little distressed. Ever since Charlie married her and became the son-in-law of the Wilson family, he had been sleeping on the floor for more than 3 years. When they first got married, Claire really did not care much about Charlie, and she did not have any feelings for him. However, after spending so many years with him, Claire did not know why she felt particularly safe with Charlie by her side. Sometimes, Claire was even afraid that Charlie would suddenly leave her. In this recent period of time, so much had happened at home, and it made Claire even more certain that Charlie was actually the only person she could actually rely on the most in this world. Aside from Charlie, all of her close relatives were not reliable at all. Of course, there was no need to even mention her grandmother and the rest of her relatives. They did not consider her as part of their family at all. As for her own mother, Claire was also completely speechless. In her mother's eyes, Claire was simply just a tool for her to reach the pinnacle of life and lead a rich and wealthy life. Even though Claire had already been married to Charlie for more than 3 years, Elaine was still hoping that Claire and Charlie would get a divorce just so Claire would be able to marry a rich man. Moreover, Claire's father was a confused man, and it would be great if he did not cause any trouble for them outside, let alone provide her with any support at all those critical moments. Therefore, Claire felt most at ease and secure with Charlie, who was sleeping on the floor at this time. Claire's heart was surging and beating frantically as she looked at Charlie. At this time, her bedroom door was suddenly pushed open. As soon as she looked up, Claire saw her mother, Elaine, rushing aggressively into her bedroom dressed in her pajamas. Claire could not help but ask, "Mom, what are you doing? Why did you barge in without knocking on the door first?" Elaine quickly ran over to the other side of the bed before she looked down and saw Charlie, who was fast asleep on the floor. At this time, she heaved a huge sigh of relief before she muttered, "I had a nightmare. I dreamt that you were pregnant with Charlie's child. Oh my God, that almost scared me to death. Therefore, I had to come over to check if Charlie is sleeping on your bed. Fortunately, he isn't." At this time, Elaine massaged her chest gently as she said, "Let me tell you something, Claire. You must never let Charlie up on your bed. Do you hear me?" Claire was a little annoyed, and she said, "Mom, Charlie and I are already husband and wife, so our sleeping arrangement is none of your business." "My ass!" Elaine yelled as she placed her hands on her hips. I was the one who gave birth to you, so everything that you do is my business. I will not allow a piece of trash to take advantage of my daughter's body. Claire replied angrily. Mom, Charlie saved your life. At this time, Elaine left one hand on her hip as she swung her other hand and replied indignantly, Don't talk to me about that useless piece of trash. I, your mother, have been living in this world for such a long time, and the only thing that I've ever relied on is being heartless. After that, Elaine said, Claire, you have to be a smart girl. The most valuable thing that you own is your body. With such a perfect body and beautiful face, you'll definitely be able to marry a billionaire after you divorce Charlie in the future. Wouldn't our family be living a good life then? Claire flicked her quilt angrily before she said, I can't be bothered to continue arguing with you. I'm going to wash up now. Hey, you kid! Elaine hurriedly chased after Claire as she wanted to continue educating her. After the both of them left the bedroom, Charlie opened his eyes with a sullen feeling in his heart. This devil mother-in-law of his was really a terrible person. He would have no choice but to teach her a lesson someday. At 7:30 in the morning, Charlie pretended that he had just woken up. After washing up, he went out to buy something before he came home. Claire hurriedly headed to her office after eating breakfast. After that, Elaine put down the dishes before she dragged her husband, Jacob, out to visit the villa at Thompson First with her. She was already starting to lose her patience, since it was taking such a long time for the renovations at the villa to be completed. Jacob was very unwilling to go, and he tried to persuade her. There are several floors in the villa, and it adds up to more than 1,000 square meters. The renovation and decorating job for the villa must be really very laborious. It should probably take more than half a year for them to be done with the renovation works. It's useless even if you are anxious. Elaine replied in a dissatisfied manner, I don't care. I have already lived in this broken house for long enough. If the renovations aren't completed by next month, then I'd rather sleep in the uncompleted villa instead of staying here a minute longer. After that, Elaine urged Jacob immediately, Stop talking nonsense. Change out of your clothes and drive me over to have a look at the villa. Hurry up. Otherwise, I'll get rid of all the antiques you've brought back home. Jacob did not pursue much in his life, and the only thing that he was really interested in was antiques. Even though he was always getting scammed, and even though he spent a lot of money buying plenty of useless items, he somehow felt that the things that he bought were in fact all very valuable. Even if they were not valuable at all now, he was certain that they would certainly be very valuable after waiting a few years. Therefore, he had always regarded all of his items as some sort of rare treasure. Jacob immediately relented and gave in as soon as he heard Elaine threatening to throw all his treasures away. Okay, I'll accompany you there, all right? Elaine pushed him before she said, Then what are you still waiting for? Hurry up and change into your clothes, Jacob cried out at this time. I have not finished eating half of my crullers yet. Just let me finish my meal first. Eat, and eat. All you know how to do is to eat, Elaine said out of annoyance. You're becoming as useless as Charlie. All you do is eat and sleep, eat and sleep. What other things have you done in your life? At this time, Jacob replied with a gloomy expression on his face, Okay, fine, I'll stop eating. After he was done speaking, Jacob quickly got up to change his clothes. When he returned after, Elaine urged him to leave the house immediately. When Charlie saw that his entire family had already gone out, he quickly took out his cell phone before he called Graham to ask him to send over more than 30 types of medicinal herbs and materials. He wanted to refine his rejuvenating pill as soon as he possibly could. Graham naturally agreed to send the herbs over to him, and told him that he would deliver the herbs and materials to him as soon as possible. As soon as he hung up, Charlie suddenly received a phone call from Douglas. As soon as the call was connected, Douglas said respectfully, Mr. Wade, did you manage to catch the Japanese man who tried to steal the medicine from me yesterday? Yes, we caught them, Charlie replied. I simply laid out the trap for them, but I really did not expect them to jump right into it. Douglas was also surprised, and he quickly said, Mr. Wade, I heard some of my friends in the medical circles saying that the chairman of Kobayashi Pharma, Mr. Masao Kobayashi, passed away early this morning from a sudden illness. Is this incident related to the 4 pills that you gave to me that day? At this time, Charlie replied faintly, Yes, Mr. Masao Kobayashi died after he took one of the 4 pills that I gave you. In fact, those pills aren't actually miracle medicine, but are actually poison. Douglas had already anticipated that there would certainly be a problem with the pills that Charlie had given to him. As soon as he heard Charlie's words, he could not help but exclaim, "Mr. Wade, you're really incredible. If you did not plan all of this ahead of time, then the magical pills that you had given to me would have already been taken away by the Japanese man." As they were talking, Charlie suddenly heard the voice of Douglas' granddaughter, Zyla, speaking in the background. "Grandpa, the brothers from the Weaver family, Jeffrey and Liam, are here to see you." The Weaver family? Douglas could not help but frown. Why are they here to see me? When Charlie heard this, he simply smiled and said, "I heard that Kenneth's nerves have begun to fester after taking the medicine created by the Weaver family. I think that they are probably here to beg you to help them." At this time, Douglas immediately replied, "Mr. Wade, don't worry. I know that the bastard Kenneth was very disrespectful towards you. Therefore, even if he were to die in front of me, I would not lift a finger to help him." At this time, Jeffrey and Liam were stopped by the staff of Serene World Clinic. "Excuse me, did you make an appointment for your visit today?" the guy asked as he looked at Jeffrey very vigilantly. He had never seen Jeffrey before, and there had been too many messy and inappropriate people coming to Serene World Clinic to look for Douglas in the past 2 days. Therefore, the young man did not dare to let anyone in so casually. Jeffrey hurriedly replied, "Hello, young brother. I am Jeffrey, the young lord of the Weaver family. Please inform the genius doctor, Dr. Simmons, that I admit I must have offended him at the Chinese Medical Expo the other day. The reason I'm here today is to apologize to Dr. Simmons, and I really hope that he'll be able to give me an opportunity to apologize to him in person." The young man replied coldly, "Dr. Simmons has said he won't be seeing anyone who does not have an appointment with him, so please leave immediately. You should at least be speaking politely to me. I'm still the young lord of the Weaver family anyway, let me tell." "Sorry, but none of us at Serene World Clinic know of the Weaver family. Please leave immediately, otherwise I have no choice but to call the police." The young man did not want to give up, and he could not be bothered to show Jeffrey any respect. Therefore, he was chasing him out of the clinic at this time. "Don't do this to me, brother. We can talk things out nicely." Jeffrey started panicking at this time. The reason why he came here today was to beg Douglas to take action to save Kenneth. If Kenneth's penis continued festering to the point where he needed amputation, then the Weaver family would definitely have to pay for it. In the eyes of the Weaver family, Douglas was probably the only person who would be able to save Kenneth now. Even though Jeffrey would be asking an extravagant request from Douglas, as long as Douglas could cure Kenneth, the Weaver family would also be able to escape from a disaster. Therefore, Jeffrey placed all of his hopes on Douglas. If his father found out that he did not even get to see Douglas in person, he would definitely be furious. At the same time, Liam, the illegitimate son of the Weaver family, simply stood at the side without saying anything at all. This time, his father, Jordan, had already said that whoever could solve this crisis would succeed him as the chairman of Weaver Pharmaceuticals. Therefore, the first thing that came to Liam's mind was to seek Douglas' help. However, he did not expect Jeffrey to have the same idea, and since he had run into his brother at the clinic, he could only become a follower and assistant to his elder brother. Jeffrey wanted to see Douglas as soon as possible, so he opened his mouth and yelled into the Serene World Clinic, "Dr. Simmons, we need your help to save a life. Please let us in." The young man was very angry at this time. "I've already told you that Dr. Simmons is not seeing anyone without an appointment. Don't you think it's very shameless for you to be screaming in this manner?" At this time, Douglas had just ended his phone call with Charlie, and he stepped out of his consultation room. He walked towards the door before he stared coldly at the Weaver brothers as he said, "Why are both of you causing trouble at Serene World Clinic?" When Jeffrey saw Douglas, he quickly pushed the young man aside before he hurriedly said, "Dr. Simmons, I am Jeffrey from the Weaver family. I really need your help." Douglas simply glared at him before he said, "I remember you. I saw you being very disrespectful towards Mr. Wade at the Chinese Medicine Expo the other day. Now you actually have the audacity to come and create trouble at my clinic?" Jeffrey hurriedly begged, "Don't get me wrong, Dr. Simmons. I was confused, and I know that I offended Mr. Wade at the Chinese Medicine Expo the other day. That is entirely my fault. However, I ask that you have mercy and forgive me for my mistake." "Impossible," Douglas replied coldly. "Mr. Wade has been very kind to me all this while. The fact that you offended him is even more serious than if you had offended me. So no matter what you're about to ask of me, I will never do it for you. Please leave this place immediately." After he was done speaking, Douglas turned around as he was ready to chase them away. Jeffrey panicked and started begging, "I'm really sorry for what I did, Dr. Simmons. I know that it was my mistake. It's my fault. I have no complaints at all if you want to hit or scold me. It's just that the Weaver family has encountered a huge crisis this time. Could you really bear to see the Weaver family completely destroyed just like that?" Douglas replied coldly, "Sorry, but I'm not that familiar with you at all. Moreover, your family has nothing to do with me. Please leave immediately." As soon as he heard Douglas' words, Jeffrey hurriedly snatched the brocade box from Liam before he handed it over to Douglas and said respectfully, "Dr. Simmons, this is just a token of my appreciation. It is a piece of Hettian jade worth more than $5 million. Please accept it." Douglas did not even look at the so-called Hettian jade before he said unceremoniously, "Don't tell me how it's worth $5 million. I won't accept it even if it's worth $50 million or $500 million. Take it with you and leave immediately. You are not welcomed here." At this time, Liam, who had been keeping silent all this time, sighed softly as he knelt on the ground directly before he started begging Douglas bitterly, "Dr. Simmons, please be merciful and save the Weaver family. I will kowtow to you as a form of gratitude for your kindness towards our family." Douglas got a little less angry after seeing Liam's pious appearance. Compared to the arrogant and conceited Jeffrey, Liam was obviously better educated and more polite. Both brothers were the opposite of each other. Jeffrey glared at Liam, filled with dissatisfaction in his heart. He cursed silently in his heart at this time. This bastard is really good at putting on an act. He's actually kneeling down and kowtowing in front of Dr. Simmons? Perhaps he wants to steal the credit and covets the position of the head of the family. As he thought about this, Jeffrey kicked Liam aside before he yelled, "You're just an illegitimate child. What qualifications do you have to kneel on behalf of the Weaver family? If there's anyone who's going to kneel on behalf of the Weaver family, that person would be me." Even though Liam was kicked to the ground, he did not complain or say anything at all. Instead, he hurriedly got up before he patted off the dirt on his body before he stood aside in a humble manner. At this time, Jeffrey quickly knelt down on his knees as he begged, "Dr. Simmons, you should have heard that Kenneth's illness did not get better, but instead deteriorated after taking the medication concocted by the Weaver family. Now that his penis is rotting, he's threatening to destroy the Weaver family. You're the only person who can save the Weaver family now." Douglas had already known the purpose of their visit to him today, and even after listening to Jeffrey's explanation, he turned down their request once again without any hesitation at all. "You want me to save Kenneth? Let me tell you, it's absolutely impossible. Both you and Kenneth have repeatedly disrespected Mr. Wade. Even if you were to tell me that the sky is falling down on me, I won't lift a single finger to help him." After he was done speaking, Douglas told his staff in a cold manner, "Okay, get these two men out of my clinic now." Immediately afterwards, Douglas turned around and walked further inside Serene World Clinic without even turning his head back. Even though it is said that a healer should have a parental heart, no one should be required to do good for the wicked. The staff quickly kicked Liam and Jeffrey out at this time before he said, "If both of you dare to appear at Serene World Clinic again, I will call the police immediately." Jeffrey had a very ugly expression on his face as he stood at the entrance of Serene World Clinic. Aside from Douglas, there weren't any other genius doctors in Oris Hill who would be able to cure Kenneth. Therefore, Kenneth's illness might deteriorate and worsen, and the Weaver family would completely lose all hope then. At this time, Liam asked in a low voice, "Brother, what should we do now?" Jeffrey glanced at Liam in disgust before he slapped him and said, "Liam, how many times do I have to tell you not to call me your brother? You're a bastard child, and you aren't worthy of being my brother." After that, Jeffrey glared at him with a contemptuous expression on his face before he said, "I'm going to look for someone else to find a way out of this issue. You can go back on your own." After that, Jeffrey got into his limousine before driving away immediately. Liam stood there for a moment with anger in his eyes. After that, he reached his arms into his pocket before he touched something that he had hidden with him for more than 10 years. After a short while, it seemed as though he had made some sort of decision as he secretly gritted his teeth before he turned around and entered Serene World Clinic again. When the staff member saw that Liam had entered Serene World Clinic again, he scowled before he said, "Why are you back here again? Please leave now. You are not welcomed here." Liam begged, "Brother, I have something that I'd like to say to Dr. Simmons in person. I'll leave as soon as I say my words." The staff member frowned before he said, "Dr. Simmons has already said that he does not want to see you. Why are you still being so thick-skinned?" Liam knelt on the ground before he yelled, "Dr. Simmons, I am Liam and I would like to speak to you face to face. Please be merciful and listen to me for a short while. If you refuse to see me, I will just kneel and wait outside until you decide to meet me." At this time, Douglas had already walked into the consultation room at the back of Serene World Clinic. However, he could not help but sigh when he heard Liam's voice. He had already been in contact with the illegitimate child of the Weaver family a couple of times, and Douglas could tell that he was indeed very educated and polite. Moreover, Douglas also felt that Liam's situation in the Weaver family was really worthy of sympathy. As soon as Douglas heard Liam's words, he also felt compassionate and slightly moved. Therefore, he came out of the consultation room, and when he saw that Jeffrey had already left and Liam was all alone at the entrance of the clinic, he said, "You can come in and meet me." "Thank you, Dr. Simmons." Liam was overjoyed at this time. He got up in a hurry before he followed Douglas towards the back of the clinic. As soon as they entered the back hall, Liam immediately took out a slender wooden box made of mahogany from his pockets. After that, he opened the wooden box, revealing a whole piece of snow-white ginseng. After that, Liam offered the ginseng to Douglas with both hands as he blurted out, "Dr. Simmons, this is the 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng that my mother left me before she passed away. I want to dedicate this piece of 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng to Mr. Wade so he can have mercy on me and help the Weaver family on my behalf." Douglas was stunned when he saw the snow-white ginseng. It turned out to be really a 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng. Douglas had only ever seen and read a description of this type of ginseng in classical medical books. He even thought that such a thing did not exist in this world, and believed that the snow-white ginseng could only live for up to 100 years old at most. Even though this piece of snow-white ginseng was not very long, its whole body was already a little translucent, and this was because it had already been waxed. A normal piece of ginseng would not normally wax, and therefore it was obvious that this was indeed a ginseng that was more than 1,000-year-old. This made Douglas conclude that this snow-white ginseng was definitely more than 1,000 years old. Unexpectedly, this thing really existed in this world. At this time, he could not help but ask in surprise, This is really yours? Why do you have such precious medicinal materials in your possession?" Liam nodded before he said earnestly, "Dr. Simmons, to tell you the truth, my mother is a native of Mount Goldman. My ancestors and my grandfather have been collecting medicinal herbs on Mount Goldman for generations. This 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng has actually been handed down in my mother's family for many generations. It is one of our family's most prized possession." After that, Liam said once again, "When my father, Jordan Weaver, just started his medicinal material business, he often came to Mount Goldman to gather medicinal herbs and materials. He lied about being a single man and deceived my mother. After my mother got pregnant and gave birth to me, he left us all alone. I grew up and spent most of my life on Mount Goldman. When my mother fell seriously ill and was about to pass away, she was afraid that I would be left alone in this world. Therefore, she secretly contacted my grandfather, and since I am one of the descendants of the Weaver family, my grandfather did not want me to live outside alone. At that time, my grandfather ordered my father to pick me up from Mount Goldman and bring me back to the Weaver family. Before my mother passed away, she left me this piece of 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng and told me to keep it with me at all times in preparation for any emergencies. Now that the Weaver family is facing such a huge crisis, I am more than willing to dedicate this 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng to Mr. Wade if he would just lend a helping hand to our family." Douglas was utterly speechless because he was extremely shocked. He had always known that Liam was an illegitimate child, but he did not know that there was such a story behind it. Liam had never told anyone about his life. Douglas was the first person that he ever told his story to. Ever since he was brought back to the Weaver family, Liam had always been insulted and humiliated by everyone around him. Since his childhood, his father, Jordan, and his half-brother, Jeffrey, had always hated him. He had always been scolded, beaten, and subjected to various sorts of humiliations, but he had slowly gotten used to it. He had been very patient as he slowly waited for the day when he would finally be able to find a suitable opportunity to get out of his dark and miserable situation. Since the Weaver family was suffering from such a huge crisis, and since Jordan had already officially announced that the position of chairman of Weaver Pharmaceuticals would be given to anyone who could resolve this crisis, Liam decided that he should take advantage of this opportunity to use the 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng that he had kept hidden for more than 20 years to turn his life around. This 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng was priceless. The normal price for the 300-year-old purple ginseng that Charlie and Kenneth competed for previously was estimated to be around $30 million. This 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng could be sold for at least $100 million ordinarily. If someone were to fight for it, it would not be uncommon for it to be sold for at least $300 million. Liam was willing to hand this 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng to Charlie, so Charlie would be able to resolve the crisis that the Weaver family was facing. If he could successfully resolve the crisis, then he would finally be able to take over the position of chairman of Weaver Pharmaceuticals. Douglas was shocked by this 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng. He knew that Charlie had the ability to refine and concoct medicine, and he knew that this 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng would definitely be of great help to Charlie. Therefore, he immediately took out his cell phone to call Charlie. At this time, Charlie had just received the medicinal herbs and materials from Graham. After that, he combined the 300-year-old purple ginseng with all the other medicinal herbs and materials to make about 30 rejuvenating pills. As soon as he was done making the rejuvenating pills, Charlie suddenly received a phone call from Douglas. As soon as the call was connected, Douglas' voice sounded on the other end of the line. "Mr. Wade, Liam, the illegitimate son of the Weaver family, is asking for your help. If you can help the Weaver family to tide over the crisis they are facing, he's willing to give you a 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng." "A 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng? Is it true?" Charlie was very surprised. The 300-year-old purple ginseng was already a very rare medicinal herb. Moreover, the snow-white ginseng was even more precious and rarer than the purple ginseng itself. What's more, the 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng was definitely regarded as a treasure in the medical field. In fact, Charlie was a little excited when he heard about the 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng. He had read in the Nine Heavens Profound book that even snow-white ginseng that was more than 500 years old was already a treasure of heaven with an extremely strong aura. If he could get his hands on it, then he would definitely be able to improve his strength and his abilities. At this time, Douglas quickly said, "To be honest, Mr. Wade, this is the first time that I am seeing a 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng for myself. Therefore, I am not really sure whether it is really 1,000 years old. However, I can be certain that it is definitely more than 500 years old." Charlie hummed before he praised Douglas. "Dr. Simmons, you did a good job with this matter. In fact, I just made a new pill that will be able to make you 10 times younger than you are. I will pass you one of these pills." When Douglas heard Charlie's voice, he trembled in excitement as he said respectfully, "Mr. Wade, you are really too kind to me. In fact, I am only doing what I need to do. It is my responsibility." Charlie smiled before he said, "Dr. Simmons, I've told you that I will always reward and punish people accordingly. If you do things for me, I will naturally not forget to give you credit for it. You can bring Liam to me now, and I will reward you in the future." After that, Charlie said once again, "Why don't you bring Liam over to see me now so I can determine the authenticity of his 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng?" Douglas replied immediately, "Okay, Mr. Wade, I will bring him over immediately." Douglas hung up the phone before he told Liam, "Mr. Wade has already agreed to meet you. You can come with me now." When Liam heard this, he immediately showed an expression of gratitude as he bowed before Douglas and said, "Thank you for your generosity and help, Dr. Simmons." Douglas waved his hand before he said, "I'm just lending Mr. Wade a hand. You don't need to thank me. If Mr. Wade is willing to help you, then you can just thank him directly." Liam nodded in a hurry before he said, "Okay, should we leave now, Dr. Simmons?" Douglas nodded before he called out to his granddaughter, Zyla, as he said, "Zyla, can you drive us over to Mr. Wade's house?" When Zyla heard that her grandfather was going to see Charlie, she was very excited, and she quickly said, "Grandpa, let's go over now. We wouldn't want Mr. Wade to wait so long." After that, Liam took his 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng with him before he followed Douglas and Zyla out of Serene World Clinic. After that, they got into a new Audi that Zyla had recently bought. After Douglas made the decision to stay in Oris Hill, Zyla had decided to buy this car so it would be more convenient for her to travel around with her grandfather. Zyla drove towards Charlie's house, and within 10 minutes, they were already in front of Charlie's house. At this time, Douglas looked at Liam before he gave him a gentle reminder. "Your brother had some conflicts with Mr. Wade in the past. You must remember not to be disrespectful towards Mr. Wade when you see him later." Liam nodded hurriedly before he said, "You don't need to worry, Dr. Simmons. I would never dare disrespect Mr. Wade." "Okay." Douglas knew that Liam and his arrogant brother were two completely different people, so he simply nodded before he pressed the doorbell. Charlie quickly opened the door. As soon as they saw Charlie, Douglas and Zyla hurriedly bowed before they greeted him respectfully. "Hello, Mr. Wade." Liam also hurriedly saluted and greeted Charlie respectfully. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Wade." Charlie nodded before he said, "You don't have to be so polite. Come in and have a seat so that we can talk." The three of them quickly walked into the house. As soon as they entered the house, the three of them could not help but look around the living room. This was the first time that they had ever visited Charlie's house, and they could not help but feel a little surprised. Charlie had so many connections with all the upper-class people in Oris Hill, and he had such a respectable status. So why did he choose to live in such an ordinary residential building? Liam also felt that Charlie was unfathomable. He was obviously a very wealthy man who could easily spend $100 million at an auction, and yet he was living in such a simple environment. Charlie did not know what the three of them were thinking about, and he simply pointed at the sofa before he said, "Please sit down." The three of them nodded before they sat down directly opposite Charlie. At this time, Charlie looked at Liam before he asked curiously, "I heard that you have something to ask me?" Liam nodded hurriedly before he took out the wooden box containing the 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng from his pocket and handed it over to Charlie. After that, he said respectfully, "Mr. Wade, this 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng is a family heirloom that was passed down in my mother's family for many generations. I've been carrying it close to me all these years, but this kind of treasure can never reach its maximum potential in my hands. Therefore, after thinking about it, I've decided to dedicate it to you, Mr. Wade." Charlie did not say anything, and he simply opened the wooden box to look at the 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng. At this time, he could see a piece of snow-white ginseng with human-like roots and some wax surrounding it lying inside the box. Moreover, with just a single glance, Charlie could feel the strong and rich spiritual energy within the snow-white ginseng. This was really a treasure of heaven and earth. It had survived for thousands of years between heaven and earth and had absorbed all the aura between heaven and earth. Furthermore, the 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng originated from Mount Goldman, where it has always been very well protected and had an almost primitive ecology. Therefore, this was indeed a very pure snow-white ginseng. Charlie could not help but feel a little excited. If he used this 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng for himself, he would definitely be able to reach a new high potential for his own strength and ability. This was simply an opportunity he could not resist. Therefore, Charlie asked faintly, "So, what would you like me to do for you, Liam?" Liam hurriedly replied, "Mr. Wade, you should know about the chairman of Modest Way Group, Kenneth Wilson from Eastcliff. He lost his manhood some time ago, and after taking a medicine prescribed by the Weaver family, his penis is starting to rot. The doctor is now saying that he can no longer keep his penis intact and that he would need to amputate it. If he really has to amputate his penis, then he'll definitely destroy the Weaver family. Therefore, I'd really like to ask for you to take action to help the Weaver family, Mr. Wade. If you can just cure Kenneth of his disease, then the Weaver family will definitely be able to survive this disaster. Charlie smiled playfully at this time. Instead of directly replying to Liam, he asked him with a curious expression on his face, I heard that you've suffered countless insults and humiliation in the Weaver family, so why are you giving me this precious snow-white ginseng at this time and begging me to help the Weaver family overcome this crisis? Liam confessed immediately, Yes, I've suffered plenty of humiliation in the Weaver family throughout the years. To be completely honest with you, I have no feelings for the Weaver family at all. If my mother did not fall sick and pass away when I was still young, I would not have come to the Weaver family at all. I left Mount Goldman just to come to Auris Hill. As he spoke about this, Liam suddenly became a little excited. He clenched his fists tightly together as he said, The Weaver family has already insulted and humiliated me for so many years. The only reason why I'm still staying in the Weaver family is just so I'll be able to look for an opportunity to avenge myself for all the humiliation I've suffered and endured all this while. Furthermore, my father inflicted great harm upon my mother back then, and I've always hoped to be able to make him lower his head in front of me. I want him to go up to Mount Goldman and visit my mother's grave to apologize to her for what he did. At this point, Liam was feeling a little agitated. He choked as he said, Mr. Wade, my mother was originally the only daughter of a family of herbal medicine collectors at the foot of Mount Goldman. Even though she did not come from a big family, she lived a good life because of the craftsmanship of their herbs and medicine. When the scum of my father came to Mount Goldman, he was immediately attracted to my mother because she was beautiful and young. Therefore, he easily deceived my mother as she was still very innocent and ignorant at that time. He fooled around with my mother when my mother thought that he would marry her in the end. Unexpectedly, he was only a scumbag who left when he found out that my mother was pregnant with his child. As he spoke about this, Liam continued telling Charlie about everything that happened back then. Liam's mother was pregnant without ever getting married, and she was vilified in Mount Goldman when she was pregnant with Jordan's child. If it weren't because of her pregnancy, she would have ended her life a long time ago. After Liam was born, he became a bastard child that everyone living in the village at the foot of Mount Goldman would point and laugh at. The only warmth and safe haven that he had during his childhood was his mother. However, his mother fell ill from overworking and all the accumulated resentment she was feeling. Therefore, she died when he was still a young boy. Ever since Liam entered the Weaver family, he had never experienced a single good day. His father looked down on his mother, and so he also looked down on him. His stepmother and half-brother abused him, beat him, and humiliated him for more than 20 years. All this while, Liam had been holding in all the resentment that he was feeling just so he would be able to look for an opportunity to take revenge. As he spoke about this, Liam looked at Charlie before he said sincerely, Mr. Wade, my father promised that the person who resolves this crisis will become the chairman of Weaver Pharmaceuticals. If you can help me become the chairman of Weaver Pharmaceuticals, I promise to work for you and obey all your commands for the rest of my life. When Charlie heard Liam's words, he suddenly felt that Liam was in a similar situation as he was. Once upon a time, he was also an orphan and piece of trash who was humiliated and bullied by others. His life only turned around when Stephen Thompson found him and handed Emgrand Group and a black card with tens of billions of dollars over to him. Later, Charlie finally had the opportunity to achieve greatness when he found the Nine Heavens Profound book by accident. Once upon a time, he had also been cast aside by everyone. He had also been waiting for an opportunity to prove himself to everyone, as well as to slap all those who had despised him in the past. Therefore, he could understand Liam's feelings very well. Liam was a child who had been called a bastard ever since he was a young boy. His mother died, and even though he was brought into his own biological father's home, he was subjected to even greater torture and humiliation. After more than 20 years, the degree of tolerance in his heart had already increased greatly. As he thought about this, Charlie decided to help him. Charlie wanted to help Liam to gain control of the entire Weaver family. It just so happened that Liam's brother was his enemy. Moreover, Charlie could also put the 1,000-year-old snow-white ginseng to good use for himself. Therefore, Charlie said, "Liam, since you want to take revenge so badly, I will definitely help you." As soon as Liam heard his words, he knelt down on the ground with excitement before he slammed his head to the ground as he said, "Thank you, Mr. Wade. Thank you for your generosity. I will never forget it." Charlie nodded before he helped him up and asked, "So where is Kenneth now?" "At the Weaver family mansion," Liam replied in a hurry. "Since the ulceration on his penis cannot be treated, he can only temporarily receive anti-inflammatory and antibacterial treatments at the Weaver family mansion." Charlie nodded again before he said, "All right then. If that is the case, then let's go and treat him now." As he spoke, Charlie said again, "However, I have to tell you this. I'm only going to cure the ulceration so that his penis does not rot any further. I will not restore his manhood for him." Liam hurriedly replied, "Mr. Wade, don't worry. His manhood has nothing to do with the Weaver family at all. The Weaver family only needs to cure him of the ulceration and prevent his penis from rotting so that he does not need to amputate it." Charlie smiled before he said, "All right then, we can leave now." Liam nodded excitedly before he said, "Okay, Mr. Wade." At this time, everyone was gathered in the Weaver family mansion's living room, and they had extremely anxious expressions on their faces. The deadline given by Kenneth was already near, but it seemed as though no one had found a solution to solve Kenneth's troubles. At this time, Kenneth also had a gloomy expression on his face. He was still infusing fluids into his body. However, the antibiotics could only slow down the rotting but not cure him. In fact, Kenneth was already beginning to feel more pain, and he could feel the situation getting more and more serious. When Kenneth saw the Weaver family members leaving and eventually returning one by one, he could not help but ask in anger, "What? You have not found a way to heal me yet?" Everyone had an embarrassed look on their faces, and they started panicking as they exchanged glances with one another. Kenneth glared at the head of the Weaver family before he shouted, "Jordan Weaver, haven't you found a way to cure me yet?" Jordan trembled a little as he replied, "Don't worry, Chairman Wilson. I have already sent someone to find a famous doctor to come over to cure you. I have also mobilized all the Weaver family's contacts in the pharmaceutical industry, and we are all looking for even stronger antibiotics that would help to cure you." Even though he was saying that, Jordan knew that there was no hope at all. He had originally hoped that Jeffrey would be able to invite Douglas to come over to cure Kenneth, but Douglas did not give him any face at all. After Jeffrey was driven out of Serene World Clinic by Douglas, he had also gone to look for a few other famous genius doctors in Orris Hill. However, as soon as any one of them heard that the patient was Kenneth, no one wanted to come. In fact, word about the incident involving Douglas had already spread all over Orris Hill. Moreover, they also knew that Kenneth's penis was ulcerating because he had been taking medicine indiscriminately. The doctor at Silverwing Hospital also said that the only cure for this situation was an amputation. Who would dare to get involved in this matter right now? If he was not cured, not only would they be ridiculed, but they might also suffer from Kenneth's retaliation. After all, he had retaliated against the Weaver family simply because they had given him medication that ultimately caused his penis to start rotting. After searching around with no hope of finding anyone to treat Kenneth, Jeffrey could only return home out of desperation. At this time, the other members of the Weaver family were also in a similar situation as Jeffrey. As soon as anyone heard that the patient was Kenneth, 11 out of 10 doctors were unwilling to come. They did not even want to come even if they were offered a lot of money. When Jordan saw this, he suddenly felt that the future of the Weaver family was very bleak. In fact, Kenneth's rate of festering was not too slow. At this rate, it could be estimated that his penis would be completely rotten in less than 2 days' time. At that time, the Weaver family would certainly meet its demise. At this time, Jeffrey dragged Jordan aside before he asked in a low voice, "Dad, what should we do now? Why don't we run away instead?" Jordan looked at Jeffrey with a sullen expression on his face. The more he looked at him, the angrier and frustrated he felt. "You only know how to escape all the time. Where could you possibly run to? Do you think that Kenneth will not look for us after we leave Orris Hill?" After that, Jordan looked at Jeffrey with an annoyed expression on his face as he said, I asked you to bring Dr. Simmons here, but you came back all by yourself. You're really useless." Jeffrey was very dissatisfied, and he argued, "Dad, you can't blame me. As soon as Dr. Simmons heard that I wanted him to treat Kenneth, he refused immediately. It's clear that he has an enmity with Kenneth. So, what else can I do?" At this time, Jordan raised his hand and gave Jeffrey a slap across his face before he cursed at him. "This has always been the case with you ever since you were a child. Whenever something happens, you will always shirk your responsibility. Do you think that you aren't to blame just because Dr. Simmons refuses to come? Have you thought about this? Would we even be in this situation if you did not try to win Kenneth over by giving him a drug that has not been clinically verified?" As he spoke about this, Jordan scolded angrily. "If you did not do that, would we have ended up in this situation? I've worked so hard my entire life to build up Weaver Pharmaceuticals, and now you're about to destroy it overnight." Jeffrey had been spoiled ever since he was young, and his father had rarely ever hit him. At this point, Jordan could not help but slap Jeffrey as he was filled with anger and disappointment. Jeffrey also had a very ugly expression on his face at this time. He knew that he was to blame for this incident, and it was impossible for him to push the responsibility to someone else. He could only cover his face as he stammered, "Dad, I'm really sorry. I was wrong, but I was only trying to bring the Weaver family further. After all, Kenneth is the chairman of Modestway Group, and I thought that our future would definitely be brighter if we developed a good relationship with him." Jordan sighed in despair because Jeffrey's words somehow touched him to a certain extent. He knew that his son did not intend to harm the Weaver family. He had only done this because he hoped that he would be able to help the Weaver family prosper even further. Was this really the destiny of the Weaver family? Perhaps this was the price that he had to pay for fooling around too much when he was younger. As he was about to lose all hope, someone in the Weaver family suddenly yelled excitedly, "Liam has brought the genius doctor, Dr. Simmons, and a young man back with him!" As soon as he said this, everyone was very excited. Jordan's eyes widened as he asked in a trembling voice, "What did you just say? Who did Liam bring back with him?" A person yelled at the door, "Liam brought Dr. Simmons and a young man back with him. They have already entered the yard." As soon as the voice fell, Jordan immediately had an ecstatic look on his face. Dr. Simmons was here? Has Liam finally invited Dr. Simmons here? Oh my God! It seemed as though there was hope for the Weaver family. Kenneth was even more excited at this time. He did not care about the needle infused at the back of his hand. His eyes were filled with excitement at this time. Ever since his penis began to rot, Kenneth knew that Dr. Simmons was the only one who could cure him. However, he also knew that Douglas was very dissatisfied with him, and it would be impossible for him to step up and save him. Moreover, he really could not understand why Douglas would change his mind and agree to treat him for the sake of the Weaver family. However, he could not be too bothered about it. He simply wanted to cure himself. Even if he could not use it, he wanted it to be in perfect condition. He did not want to amputate it. At this time, Jordan, who had not been in good health, quickly walked towards the door, filled with excitement in his heart. "Hurry! Bring Dr. Simmons in immediately!" Jeffrey was in disbelief, and he blurted out immediately, "How can that bastard Liam possibly get Dr. Simmons to come here? There's no way that he possibly did this." "Shut up. I don't care how he did it. It's a good thing that he's managed to invite Dr. Simmons to come here." Jordan glared at Jeffrey before he warned him, "Do not talk nonsense later. If there's anything you need to say, wait until Dr. Simmons cures Chairman Wilson first." Jeffrey was very upset, but he could only nod as he listened to his father's words. At this time, Liam stepped into the Weaver family mansion with Douglas and Charlie. When they saw Douglas, the rest of the Weaver family members were all relieved. Everyone felt that the Weaver family would finally be saved now that Douglas was here. Unexpectedly, in the moment of crisis, it is none other than Liam who has turned the tide around. He's really incredible. It seems as though Weaver Pharmaceuticals will be handed over to Liam now. With Liam's sudden performance, the direction of the entire Weaver family seemed to have changed a little. After all, Jordan was the one who proclaimed that anyone who could resolve this crisis would become the chairman of Weaver Pharmaceuticals and the head of the Weaver family. Everyone could not help but feel a little strange at this time. Jeffrey was filled with hatred and anger as he listened to everyone's comments. "Liam, you damn bastard! You actually dare to steal my limelight?" There was also that wretched Dr. Simmons. When Jeffrey invited him, he had refused to come. So why did he come when Liam invited him? At this time, Jeffrey suddenly saw Charlie. The expression on his face turned ugly immediately. He would never forget the humiliation that he suffered when Charlie forced him to lick the urinals at Gloria's Club. Unexpectedly, this guy was actually together with that bastard, Liam. Kenneth was also going to greet Douglas excitedly. However, the expression on his face changed as soon as he saw Charlie. At the same time, he could not help but feel very upset. The humiliation that he had suffered in front of Charlie was no less than what Jeffrey had suffered. Originally, he regarded Charlie as his mortal enemy. However, now that Charlie was here with Douglas, he did not dare to say anything or cause a scene at all. This was because he knew that Douglas really looked up to and respected Charlie. If he offended Charlie again, Kenneth was afraid that Douglas would refuse to cure him. As he thought about this, Kenneth stepped forward immediately before he bowed and said, "Uncle Simmons, I know that I've angered you previously. I know that it is all my fault. I know that I was wrong. Please heal me." At this time, Douglas replied nonchalantly, "I've already told you that both our families would have nothing to do with one another in the future. Please do not address me as your uncle again in the future." After that, Douglas pointed at Charlie before he said respectfully, "Also, the person who will take care of you today isn't me, but Mr. Wade instead." In Douglas' eyes, Charlie's ability was almost close to God's. Moreover, Charlie's ability at refining magical pills and medicine had already suppressed that of all the doctors and pharmacists in this world. Therefore, Douglas respected Charlie with all of his heart. Kenneth was stunned when he heard this, and he looked at Charlie in disbelief before he said, "What? Charlie, do you really think that someone like you will be able to cure me?" At this time, Charlie looked at Kenneth with a playful expression on his face as he said, "Well, Kenneth, what kind of attitude is that? Do you really want to go through an amputation?" Douglas also frowned as he said, "Kenneth, Mr. Wade is the only person in this world who can save you from your misery now. I hope that you won't have any regrets in future if you're going to continue disrespecting Mr. Wade." Kenneth choked as soon as he heard Douglas' words. In fact, he had already suspected that Charlie was the one who made him lose his manhood in the first place. However, he could not find any evidence linking it at all. Moreover, Charlie had already humiliated him more than once. He had even forced him to address him as his father and grandfather. It could be said that the person that Kenneth hated the most in this world was Charlie. However, as soon as Kenneth heard that Charlie was possibly the only person in this world who could save him, he quickly buried all the hatred that he was feeling. After that, he looked at Charlie with a flattering expression on his face as he said, "I was wrong, Mr. Wade. Please do not take it to heart. Please help me. Please save my life." Charlie smiled faintly before he looked at him and said, "Kenneth, have you forgotten who I am?" Kenneth gritted his teeth as he secretly thought to himself that he could endure this humiliation for the sake of his own roots. Therefore, he immediately knelt down in front of Charlie before he said, "Grandpa, everything that happened in the past is my fault. Please do not take it to heart, and please cure me." As he said this, he also slapped himself in the face, out of fear that Charlie would still be angry and refuse to give him any treatment at all. At this time, everyone gathered in the Weaver family mansion were all dumbfounded. This was Chairman Wilson. Chairman Wilson from Modest Way Group was actually calling a young man his grandfather. What is the identity of this young man who could actually make the chairman of a publicly listed corporation bow before him? Charlie nodded in satisfaction before he said, "All right then. I do think you're getting better and better at it." Both Jordan and Douglas really admired Charlie, but Kenneth was even willing to call Charlie his grandfather. It was really shocking. At this time, Jordan stepped forward and complimented. "I have already heard of your name for the longest time, Mr. Wade. I really did not expect to meet you in person today. You are truly a master. Please help me cure the chairman's illness today." Jeffrey, who was standing aside, could not help but feel angry when he saw Charlie. Therefore, he gritted his teeth as he said, "Dad, This grandson is not a master at all. I have looked into him and I found out that he is nothing more than someone who could read a little feng shui. Don't fall for his trap. That bastard Liam must have called him here to deceive you." Jordan trembled a little at this time, and when he saw the frown on Charlie's face, he gave Jeffrey a tight slap across his face without any hesitation at all. What he did not expect was that Kenneth, who was kneeling on the ground at this time, also jumped up and slapped Jeffrey across the face when he heard his words. Both of them gave Jeffrey 2 tight slaps across his left and right cheek.